Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to bring you a free-for-all battle between the four 2021 Challenger decks. Over here we have Azorius Control, over there we have Dimir Rogues, Mono Green Stompy, and Mono Red Aggro. We're going to be playing one free-for-all game where anybody can attack anybody and the last deck standing is the winner. We'll go ahead and roll off using d20s to see who goes first. Azorius Control rolls a 4, Dimir Rogues rolls a 9, Mono Green Stompy rolls a 9. Mono Red Aggro rolls a 7. We'll have a roll off between Stompy and Rogues. Dimir Rogues rolls a 2. Mono Green Stompy rolls a 19, so Mono Green Stompy will go first. We'll draw our opening hands. Mono Green Stompy draws a forest, Snakeskin Veil, Stone Coil Serpent, forest, and Sirfarin the Henchhammer. I think this is a bit of a weak hand, but I think we still have to keep it because it has a 2 and a 3. Mono Red Aggro draws a mountain, Akum Hellhound, Bone Crusher Giant, Mountain, and Annex Hardened in the Forge. I think this is a pretty good opening hand. Azorius Control draws an island, a plains, Doomscar, Tranquil Cove, Glass Casket, Shark Typhoon, and Island. I think this is a reasonable opening hand. Dimir Rogues draws a Merfolk Windrobber, Xeris Sand the Trickster, Swamp, Eliminate, Blood Chief's Thirst, Temple of Deceit, and the Thieves Guild Enforcer. I think this is a weak but still keepable first hand. Before we get started, just wanted to let you know that you can look in the description box for reviews of the various decks once they are ready, as well as additional games that we're going to be playing with these Challenger decks. We'll go ahead and get started by drawing a card because this is multiplayer. Stompy draws a Kazandu Mammoth. Go ahead and play a forest and we'll pass the turn. Aggro draws a Rimrock Knight. We'll play a mountain. We'll tap the mountain and we'll play an Akum Hellhound. This is a 0/1 elemental dog with landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, it gains +2/+2 until end of turn. Control draws an Omen of the Sea. We'll play the Tranquil Cove. It's a land, it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. You can tap for white or blue. We'll gain 1 life to go up to 21, and then Control will pass the turn. Rogues draws Xeris Sand the Trickster and we'll play the Swamp, and then we will pass the turn. Stompy draws, gets a Turn Timber Symbiosis. We're going to play a second forest, and we'll tap both of these and cast Sirfarin the Henchhammer. It's a 2/2 legendary human knight, and whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is Sirfarin's power. Then we'll pass the turn. Aggro and taps. Draws a Bone Crusher Giant. We'll play a Mountain, which will trigger Akum Hellhound, making it a 2/3. We're going to, I think, attack Control first because it's actually the most dangerous. So we'll swing a Control with the Akum Hellhound for 2 damage. Control takes 2 and goes to 19. And then we're going to hold up mana and pass the turn. Control untaps. Draws a Shadow the Sky. We're going to play a Plains over here. And then we'll tap 2 mana to foretell the Doomscar. This is a sorcery. It says destroy all creatures, and you can foretell it for 1 white and white. And then Control will pass the turn. At the end of Control's turn, Rogues will tap the Swamp and cast the Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a 1/1 human rogue with flash, and when it or another rogue enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 2 cards. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, Thieves Guild Enforcer gets +2/+1 and has Death Touch. Stompy mills a forest and a Lovestruck Beast. Aggro mills an Annex and a Rimrock Knight. Control mills a Tranquil Cove and a Birth of Meletus. And then it is Dimir Rogues' turn. We'll untap. Rogues draws a Nighthawk Scavenger. We'll play the Temple of Deceit. It's a land, it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. Tap for blue or black. We'll scry. We'll look the Soaring Thought Thief and put it on the bottom because we'd like another land. We don't see any impossible threats at the moment, so we're going to hold up our mana and pass the turn. And then we will go attacking. Our greatest danger is also Control, so we'll swing at Control for 1. Control takes 1 and goes to 18. At the end of Rogues' turn, Aggro will tap 2 mountains and will cast Stomp. This is part of the Bone Crusher Giant, and Stomp is an instant adventure. Damage can't be prevented this turn. It deals 2 damage to any target and will target Sir Farron of the Hengehammer. We'll exile the Bone Crusher Giant. Sir Farron dies. The mono red aggro will pass priority, and it will be Stompy's turn. Stompy untaps. Draws a Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig. Then we'll play a forest. Tap out, and we'll cast Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig. This is a 0/0 legendary giant noble, and it enters the battlefield with 4+1/+1 counters on it. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. Then, if that creature's power is greater than Yorvo's power, put another +1/+1 counter on Yorvo. We'll go ahead and put the counters on now, and then Stompy will pass the turn. Aggro and taps. Draws an Anax hardened in the Forge. We'll play another mountain, which will trigger the Akum Hellhound. Can't really attack Stompy, and Stompy's probably our second greatest threat. We really can't block with the Hellhound anyways, and so I think we're going to send it in at Control for 2 more. Control takes 2 and goes to 15. Then we will tap 3 mana, and we will cast Anax Hardened in the Forge. This is a star 3 legendary enchantment demigod, and its power is equal to your devotion to red. Whenever it or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens instead. There are 3 red pips, and so Anax is a 3/3 right now. Then mono red aggro will pass the turn. Azorius Control untaps, draws, gets a Skyclave Cleric. I'm going to play the Island, and a 4-for-1 seems like a pretty good deal. We also have Shatter the Sky still waiting. So I think before we take any more hits here from the combined might, we're just going to tap 3 mana and cast Doomscar. This will destroy all creatures. Thieves Guild Enforcer dies. Yorvo dies. Anax and the Akum Hellhound both die, but this triggers Anax's ability, and we'll get 2 Satyr tokens. And then Azorius Control will pass the turn. Dimir Rogues untaps. Draws a Temple of Deceit. We'll play the other Temple of Deceit. We'll scry. We'll put the Heartless Act on the bottom, because I think getting more lands to get to Zerasan is important. And then we will play for 1 mana the Merfolk Windrobber. This is a 1/1 Merfolk Rogue with flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. You can sacrifice it to draw a card, but activate this ability only if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Then Dimir Rogues will pass the turn. Stompy untaps. Draws a forest. Play a forest, and then we're going to tap 3 mana and play a Kazandu Mammoth. This is a helper card, so we'll search out the Mammoth. The Mammoth is a 3/3 elephant with landfall. When a land enters battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Then we will pass the turn, holding up Snakeskin Veil. Aggro untaps. Draws a Royal Eruption. We'll swing the Satyrs into Control in Retribution. Control takes 2 and goes to 13. Then Aggro will tap out and cast the Bone Crusher Giant. This is a 4/3 giant, and whenever it becomes the target of a spell, it deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. And then Aggro will pass the turn. Control untaps. Draws a Banishing Light. We'll play an Island. Looks like our most dangerous threat is either Aggro or Stompy. Neither of them are going to like me right now, so I think we're going to spend 2 mana here to cast Glass Casket. This is a artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with converted mana cost 3 or less until Glass Casket leaves the battlefield. So I think we're going to get rid of Stompy's Mammoth because it's aggressive only, and it's probably the hardest hitting of the bunch. So that's what we'll do. Mammoth is eaten by the casket. Then we'll spend 2 more mana and cast the Skyclave Cleric. This is a 1/3 core cleric, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. We'll gain 2 life and go back up to 15, and then Control will pass the turn. Rogues untaps. Draws a Dismal Backwater. We'll play the Dismal Backwater. So land, it enters the battlefield tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, gain 1 life. You can tap it for blue or black. You gain a life to go up to 21. We're going to go to combat, and we'll swing the Merfolk Windrobber in at Control, who nobody likes right now. Control takes 1 and goes to 14, and then mills. Milling in Amiria's Call. Go ahead and put the correct card in there. Then rogues will tap out and cast the Nighthawk Scavenger. This is a 1+*3 vampire rogue with flying, death touch, and lifelink, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. This is currently 4 types, and so we'll put a counter on here to track that it is a 5/3 for now. And then rogues will pass the turn. Stompy untaps, draws a Snakeskin Veil, and realize that we could have used the Veil to protect the Mammoth, but this is where we're at. We'll play a Force, we'll tap 4, and we'll play Stone Coil Serpent. This is a 0/0 artifact snake with reach, trample, protection from multicolored, and as it enters the battlefield, put X +1/+1 counters on it. It's now a 4/4. We'll have to remember that we have 2 Snakeskin Veils now. And then we'll pass the turn. Aggro and taps. Draws an Embercleave. We're going to try to get rid of Control before Control can play another board wipe, putting ourselves at danger. But we'll offer the other 2 decks to swing at Control in exchange for not being attacked for 1 turn. The other decks accept, and so we'll swing everybody at Control. Control will block one of the Satyrs with the Skyclave Cleric. In response to that, aggro will tap out and we'll cast Embercleave. This is a legendary artifact equipment with flash, and it costs 1 less to cast for each attack creature you control. As it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control, and a quick creature gets +1/+1 has double strike and trample. Go ahead and put it on our Bone Crusher Giant, making it a 5/4 double strike trample. The Skyclave Cleric will kill the Satyr, but Control will take 11 damage. Control goes down to 3, and aggro will pass the turn. Control untaps. Draws a Birth of Meletus. We have to draw next turn, and the only way to do that is to Shatter the Sky, but for the time being, we're going to attack aggro with the Skyclave Cleric. Aggro goes down to 19, and then Control will tap out and cast Shatter the Sky. This is a sorcery. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures. Rogues draws a card, drawing a Swamp. Stompy draws a Forest. Aggro draws a Mountain. All creatures are destroyed. The Bone Crusher Giant and the Satyr die. The Stone Coil Serpent dies. The 2 rogues die. And the Cleric dies. Control will pass a turn. Rogues untap. Draws a Thieves Guild Enforcer. We'll play a Swamp. I think we're going to flash in Zero Sand, so we're going to pass the turn. Stompy untaps. Draws a Forest. We'll play the Forest. We have 6 mana. I can't really do much here, so we'll pass the turn. Aggro untaps. Draws a Mountain. We'll play the Mountain. We're going to spend 3 mana and play Annex, Hardened in the Forge, and then we will pass the turn. Annex is a 4/3, and we'll use the counter to track that. And then we'll pass the turn. Control untaps. Draws an Island. We'll play the Island. I think we tap 2 mana and cast the Birth of Meletus. This is an enchantment saga, and for step 1, search your library for basic planes, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. For step 2, create a 0/4 colorless artifact wall creature token with Defender, and for step 3, you gain 2 life. Go ahead and grab planes and put it into our hand. Shuffle. And then because aggro is holding lethal, we're going to tap out and cast Banishing Light. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. We'll exile Annex, and then Control will pass the turn. At the end of Control's turn, Rogues will tap out and will cast Zerasand the Trickster. This is a 4/4 legendary Merfolk rogue with flash, and you can pay 2 blue and black to return an unblocked attacking rogue you control to its owner's hand and put Zerasand the Trickster from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Whenever Zerasand deals combat damage to a player, you may put a target permanent card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Now we'll untap. We'll draw. We'll get a Drown in the Lock. this point we're in pretty good shape. We don't really have anything that can block, and I think that Stompy actually has the best card to steal here, so we're going to swing the Zero Sand at Stompy. Stompy can't block, we'll take 4 and go down to 16. Rogues will take Yorvo from the graveyard and put it onto the battlefield and get 4 counters. And then we have a lot of defenses here, so we're just going to hold things up until anything gets complicated, and we will pass the turn. Stompy draws, gets a Primal Might, play another Forest, and then we'll tap out, and we'll cast the Turn Timber Symbiosis. This help a card. Let's grab the actual one. This is a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put the creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. We have a Ram Through, Forest, Thrashing Brontodon, Ram Through, and Kazandu Mammoth. I think among all of these, the Brontodon has the most overall potential, so we'll play the Brontodon and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Because it's 3 mana or less, we'll go ahead and put 3 more counters on it, making it a 6/7, and then Stompy will pass the turn. Aggro untaps, draws and gets Torban, Thane of Redfell. This is kind of a good play on our part, because Torban definitely will give us the ability to go over the top of Stompy. So we're going to tap 4, and we'll cast Torban, Thane of Redfell. This is a 2/4 legendary dwarf noble, and if a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals damage +2 instead. Also play this mountain here, and then we will pass the turn. Give you control 1 more turn to survive, but we have enough direct burn to finish control off at any time. Control untaps, draws a Glass Casket. We'll play a Plains. We don't really have time to play the Shark Typhoon. The Birth of Melita should have also gone up and given us a 0/4. We have lethal threats facing us in every single direction, so I think we need to start getting rid of stuff. We need to get rid of that Brontodon. I think it's the most dangerous of the bunch. So we'll tap 2 mana and cast Glass Casket, targeting the Brontodon. The Brontodon has been eaten by the Glass Casket here. And then I think we have to just hold for a second, and we will pass the turn. Dimir does not want control to die just yet, because that's going to give their opponents a lot more. And so I think what we're going to do is tap 1 mana and cast another Thieves Guild Enforcer. Everybody's going to mill 2. Stompy mills a Forest and a Primal Might. Aggro mills a Fervent Champion and a Royal Eruption. Control mills a Beholding Multiverse and a Elspeth Conquers Death. Control has 8 cards in their graveyard, turning on some of Dimir's threshold mechanics. Stompy is not much of a threat right now, so I think we have to start working on aggro. And so we'll untap, draw a Swamp, we'll play the Swamp, we'll tap 4 mana, and cast Blood Chief's Thirst. This is a sorcery with kicker 2 and a black, and you can destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less. If the spell is kicked, instead destroy target creature or planeswalker. We'll target Thorbrand. Thorbrand dies. Then rogues will attack aggro with Yorvo and the Thieves Guild Enforcer, and Stompy with Zero Sand. Stompy takes 3 and goes to 13. Rogues will steal the Surfarin. Aggro takes 8 and goes to 11, and believes that the threat has changed. And then rogues will pass the turn, holding up Eliminate and Drown the Lock. Stompy untaps, draws a Primal Might. We are defenseless and we'll pass the turn. Aggro untaps, draws a Fervent Champion. I think we're going to play a blocker and then hold up some removal. And so we'll tap 3 mana, play a Bone Crusher Giant, and we'll hold up 2 mana for another Bone Crusher as removal, and then we'll pass the turn. At the end of aggro's turn, Control will tap 2 mana and cast Omen of the Sea. This is an enchantment with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 2, then draw a card, and you can pay 2 and a blue to sacrifice it to scry 2. We have 2 planes coming. We're going to stick them both on the bottom. And then we'll draw a Thirst for Meaning. We'll untap, and then we'll draw a card, which is a Dream Trawler. And Bertha Melitus will go to 3. It'll sacrifice. We'll gain 2 life to go back up to 5. At this point, we need maximum defense, and I think Dream Trawler will get us there. So we're going to tap out, and we will cast Dream Trawler. This is a 3/5 Sphinx with flying and lifelink. Whenever you draw a card, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, and then discard a card to give it hexproof until end of turn. While Dream Trawler is on the stack, rogues will tap the Temple of Deceit and Dismal Backwater and cast Drown in the Lock. This is an instant. Choose one. Target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with a converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in that controller's graveyard. So we'll counter the Dream Trawler. Dream Trawler goes to the graveyard, and with that, Control has nothing to do but to pass the turn. Rogues and taps. Draws a Soaring Thought Thief. We're going to spend 2 mana and cast the Soaring Thought Thief. This is a 1/3 human rogue with flash and flying. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, rogues you control get +1/+0. And then whenever 1 or more rogues you control attacks, each opponent mills 2 cards. And then what we'll do is we'll spend 2 more mana and we'll cast Eliminate. This says destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 3 or less, targeting the Bone Crusher Giant. Bone Crusher dies. And then we'll go to combat. Before combat, aggro will tap 2 and will cast Stomp, targeting the Sir Farron. Sir Farron dies. Then we'll swing with the Thieves Guild Enforcer and Zareth San at aggro. Yorvo will hit Stompy, and the Thieves Guild Enforcer and Zareth San also get a +1/+0. And because we are attacking, everybody else will mill 2. Stompy mills a Forest and a Sir Farron. Aggro mills an Akum Hellhound and a Kargan Intimidator. Control mills a Shadow of the Sky and a Archon of Sun's Grace. Everybody also milled 2 when the Soaring Thought Thief was entering the battlefield because of Thieves Guild Enforcer. Stompy mills a Forest and a Forest. Aggro mills a Mountain and a Mountain. Control mills a Tranquil Cove and a Banishing Light. Stompy takes 4 and goes to 9. Aggro takes 9 and goes to 2. Rogues will steal a Bone Crusher Giant, and then we'll pass the turn. Stompy draws a Scavenging Ooze. We'll pay 2 mana and cast a Scavenging Ooze. This is a 2/2 Ooze. You can pay green and exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a +1/+1 counter on Scavenging Ooze and you gain 1 life. I think we're going to have to use this to save ourselves here. We need to shut down the Zareth San. So we're going to tap 4 forests and exile 4 creatures from opponents' graveyards, and we will also gain 4 life to go back up to 13. We'll exile the Archon of Sun's Grace, the Dream Trawler, Thorban Thane of Redfell, and a Bone Crusher Giant. This will put 4 +1/+1 counters on the Scavenging Ooze, and then Stompy will pass the turn. Aggro untaps, draws a Spikefield Hazard. We'll spend 3 mana to cast a Bone Crusher Giant. Then we'll spend 2 more mana to cast Royal Eruption. Royal Eruption is a sorcery. It deals 3 damage to any target. If the spell was kicked, it deals 5 damage instead. We'll target the Soaring Thought Thief. The Thought Thief dies. Then aggro will pass the turn. Control untaps. Draws a Plains. We'll play the Plains. I think we're going to tap 3 to Thirst for Meaning here. This is an instant. It says draw 3 cards and discard 2 cards unless you discard an enchantment card. We draw a Plains, a Omen of the Sea, and a Temple of Enlightenment. I think we will discard the lands here. And then I think we're on team pass for the time being. Rogues untap. Draws a Nighthawk Scavenger. And I think we just keep swinging here. We'll swing the Thieves Guild Enforcer at Stompy, the 2 others at aggro, and Zareth San at control. Stompy will not block the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Aggro will trade the Bone Crusher Giant for the Yorvo, and control will block with the wall. So the Yorvo dies. Stompy goes down to 10. The Bone Crusher trades, and then aggro will take 4 to perish. The wall dies. And on the second main, we'll tap 3 to cast another Nighthawk Scavenger. There's 6 card types, so it'll be a 7/3. And then everybody will mill 2 because of the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Stompy mills a Forest and a Scavenging Ooze. Control mills a Negate and a Birth of Meletus. And then Rogues will pass the turn. At the end of the turn, the Scavenging Ooze will use their last ability. We'll exile the Skyclave Cleric. That'll put another counter on the Ooze and get us another life to go up to 11. We'll untap. We'll draw a Turn Timber Symbiosis, and I think this is where we start turning this into an attack. We're going to go after Rogues because they seem to be the biggest threat. So we will spend 6 mana and cast Primal Might. This is a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn and fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So it'll become a 12/12 and will hit Zerasan. Zerasan the Trickster dies. And then we're going to go swinging at Control to finish Control off to get our other 2 creatures back. Control will spend 3 mana to Shark Typhoon. This is an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a XX blue shark creature token with flying where X that spell's converted mana cost. Cycling X1 and blue, discard this card, draw a card. And when you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. We'll cycle, we'll draw a Birth of Meletus, we'll create a shark token, and we will chump the Scavenging Ooze, and the token will die. And Control will hold out for 1 more turn. Stompy passes the turn. Control untaps. They draw a Dream Trawler, so we will spend 6 mana and cast a Dream Trawler. Now we have some defense, and we will pass the turn. Rogues untaps, draws an island, we'll play the island, and then go to combat, I think. We have to take out both opponents here, because the Dream Trawler is a lot of trouble. If we attack Stompy, we'll hit them for 1 under lethal, so that's not good. I think we will swing Thieves Guild Enforcer at Stompy. Stompy can't block, so we are then going to use 4 mana and use Zerasan the Trickster's ability, returning the Thieves Guild Enforcer to her hand. Zerasan will then do 4 damage to Stompy. Stompy goes down to 7, and that'll trigger the ability of Zerasan. We'll steal a creature. We'll take Yorvo. Yorvo returns with 4 counters, and then you need to keep the Nighthawk Scavenger to hold back the Dream Trawler here. So we're going to pass the turn. Stompy untaps, draws a Forest. We don't have good defense against what the Rogues are doing. I think we're going to have to draw into some sort of removal or something like a creature. We'll play the Forest. We'll tap 7. We'll cast another Turn Timber Symbiosis. We're looking at a Forest, Lovestruck Beast, Garruk Unleashed, Wildborn Preserver, Lovestruck Beast, Forest, and Forest. We'll go ahead and take the Wildborn Preserver. It'll enter the battlefield. We'll shuffle the rest and put it on the bottom. And because it has mana cost 3 or less, it'll get 3 +1/+1 counters, bringing it up to a 5/5. We don't want to die, and we need to force some sort of problem here. The 2 flyers are keeping each other in check right now, and so we don't really want to make our opponent lose. So what we need to do is we need to attack Rogues with the Scavenging Ooze to force a block. Rogues decides just to take the 7 and go down to 14. And Stompy will pass a turn. Control untaps. Draws a island. We'll play the island. I think we need to pressure here. So we're actually going to attack with the Dream Trawler into Rogues. That'll trigger a card draw, making the Dream Trawler a 5/5 flying lifelink. Rogues will trade with the Nighthawk Scavenger. Gain 7 life to go back up to 21. The Dream Trawler also dies, and we'll get 5 life to go up to 10. Then we'll spend 2 mana, play Birth of Meletus, put a counter here, and we'll grab a Plains, shuffle. And then we'll spend 2 more mana to cast another Omen of the Sea. We're going to scry the Neutralize and the Omen of the Sea to the bottom. Then we'll draw a card, which is a Sod Coming. We'll hold up all the mana for now, and we'll pass the turn. At the end of the turn, rogues will recast the Thieves Guild Enforcer. Stompy mills a Brontodon and a Gemraiser. Control mills a Temple of Enlightenment and a Neutralize. Rogues untaps. Draws an island. So we're going to attack Control with Yorvo and Zerasan. Control can't block. They're going to take 8 and go down to 2. Zerasan will target the Dream Trawler. In response, Stompy will tap the forest and use the Scavenging Ooze to exile the Dream Trawler, getting a life and a counter. The Dream Trawler is exiled. And then Rogues will pass their turn. Stompy untaps. Draws and gets a Stone Coil Serpent. We need to get past this death-touching creature. I think the best way we have is by trying to sacrifice the Wildborn Preserver for it. So we'll swing at Rogues with the Preserver. Rogues will take 5 and go to 16. Then we're going to tap 7 mana and cast a Stone Coil Serpent for 7. And then we'll pass the turn. Control will tap 3 mana to activate an Omen of the Sea, sacrificing it and scrying 2. We will put both of Neutralize and Skyclave Cleric on the bottom. Then we'll untap. We'll draw an island, play a Tranquil Cove, getting a life going up to 3. We'll also get another wall. And we'll just hold the Sod Coming to protect ourselves from any spell threats, and then we'll pass the turn. Rogues untap. Draw a swamp. We'll play the island. We can't really do too much attacking because Stompy is now starting to get some power here. Control doesn't even have anything worth stealing, so I think we're just on defense mode, and we'll hold for now. At the end of the turn, Stompy will tap the forest, eat a Lovestruck Beast over here, and gain a life and a counter. Then we'll untap. Draw a Swarm Shambler. We'll spend 1 mana and cast the Swarm Shambler. This is a 0/0 Fungus Beast. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, create a 1/1 green insect creature token, and you can pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. I think we want to take out Control, so we're going to spend 6 mana to cast Primal Might, targeting the Stone Coil Serpent. Control does not like where this is going. We'll spend 3 mana to cast Sod Coming, targeting Primal Might. This is an instant that says counter target spell, or you can foretell 1 in a blue. Primal Might is countered. We can't send too many creatures attacking, unfortunately, but we can send a couple, and so that's what we're going to do. In fact, I don't think they can stop us if we attack with the Stone Coil Serpent, which has Trample. This is true, we block with the wall, but 3 damage tramples through and defeats the Azorius Control. Because the Glass Caskets left the battlefield, the Kazandu Mammoth and the Thrashing Bronton will return to the battlefield, and then Stompy will pass the turn. Rogues draws and gets a Merfolk Windrobber. We'll spend 1 mana, cast a Merfolk Windrobber, and then we will make Stompy Mill 2. Stompy Mills 2, the Lovestruck Beast and the Wildwood Tracker, and then we'll pass the turn. We'll tap 1 mana and exile the Nighthawk Scavenger. Oozed Rose gets us another life to go back up to 10. We'll untap. Draw a Wildborn Preserver. And here we'll swing with the Stone Coil Serpent and the Wildborn Preserver. We'll block the Wildborn Preserver with the Merfolk Windrobber and the Stone Coil Serpent with the Thieves Guild Enforcer. We'll sacrifice the Windrobber to draw a card. We draw a Dismal Backwater. The Enforcer dies and Rogues takes 5 damage to go to 11. The Stone Coil Serpent also dies, and Stompy will pass the turn. Rogues untaps, draws an island, we'll play the island, and then Rogues will pass the turn. At the end of Rogue's turn, Stompy will spend 2 and play another Wildborn Preserver. I haven't mentioned it's a 2/2 elf archer with flash, reach, and whenever another non-human creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay X. When you do, put X +1/+1 counters on Wildborn Preserver. We'll spend 5 mana to put 5 more counters on Wildborn Preserver. And then we'll spend 1 more mana to tap the Swarm Shambler, put another counter on it. We'll untap. We'll draw a Kazandu Mammoth. We'll spend 3 mana. and cast the Kazandu Mammoth. And then we will trigger all these 2 Wildborn Preservers, of which we will spend another 4 mana to put 4 +1/+1 counters on this Wildborn Preserver. We'll go to combat and we will swing with the Wildborn Preservers, the Scavenging Ooze. We'll chump the Ooze with Yorbo, and we'll chump the bigger Wildborn Preserver with Zerasan. Both of these will die. We'll take 6 from the remaining Wildborn Preserver to go down to 5. Stompy could have won. If they did the math, they would have just attacked with everybody. Then Stompy will pass the turn. Rogues draws and gets a Thieves Guild Enforcer. We'll pass the turn. Stompy untaps. Draws a Thrashing Brontodon. We'll spend 3 mana and play the Thrashing Brontodon. Then we'll trigger the Wildborn Preserver. We'll spend 4 more mana to give this one a +4/+4, making it a 10/10. We'll just swing with the whole team. Rogues can field no blockers, and so we'll take an inordinate amount of damage and perish, giving Mono Green Stompy the win. Let me know what you thought about the game in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.